So like little moments that become really big moments
Yeah.
have come out of the freedom to say, well, we like these songs. What can we do with them?
Yeah.
So
That's
that's my favorite
cool.
thing about this whole experience.
Yeah. So it's not just, they're not just picking the songs, they're really helping to shape.
They're steering the whole concert. They're deciding, let's go with this theme, or let's not worry about a theme and let's do songs we like, or let's mash these two songs together.
Welcome to Pass the Baton, empowering students in music education. Here, we amplify the voices of music teachers around the world who are passing the baton and creating environments where the music students are empowered. Together, we can help students transform from passive consumers to vibrant creators. Welcome back to the Pass the Baton podcast. I'm Kathryn Finch.
And I'm Theresa Hoover, and we're glad to be back with you today. So let's see. Today's guest was also somebody that was, referred to us from a mutual friend, and it was so exciting to talk to her. We got to learn so much about Rebecca and her choir program. And Kathryn, one thing that struck me as she was talking about how she does these concerts was that her students are in middle school,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Young, yeah. I mean, right. I think some of the things that she was talking about, we've heard people talk about maybe in high school,
Hmm.
but then to like, but middle school kids can do it too. I mean,
Right.
I know kindergartners can do it too, right? But like, yeah, sometimes we think, oh, that's a high school thing, or
Yeah.
and it's not.
Yeah, or like, oh, that's only for my top group, or that's only for the
Yes,
no. But when she was talking about these concerts that the students really had a ton of ownership, it was all of them. and
yeah,
and I appreciated that. And she also talked about how it's been a process, right? We have to remember that all of these things are a process. It's not like we wake up tomorrow and we
no.
completely change everything, and that's right.
Right. Yeah. And I yeah, like you said too, it just that it's all of them. It's not like the special thing that only eighth graders get to do.
Hmm.
But it is right, sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. And what's nice about that is like they've had to go at it sixth grade and now they're gonna do
Yeah.
it again seventh. And like she said, they walk in day one already talking about the next spring, which is
I know.
great, right?
Yeah.
And that this concert that she has um seeps in because kids have voice and they have kind of a say in all of it, that seeps into everything that she does.
Yes. Yes. I thought that was really meaningful as well. It's not just like, okay, we're going to do all of this very teacher led and then we'll flip the switch and then this. No, it sounds
Right.
like, yeah, it's becoming more of like an organic, this is kind of how we do things. Yeah. In the
Yeah.
choir. So I think there's a lot of really actionable stuff that she talks about. Before we get to today's interview, if you're ready to make powerful shifts towards student centered teaching, explore the Pass the Baton Coffee Club. Members get an exclusive deeper dive audio extra and a Reflect and Act PDF download after every episode, plus access to our full resource library.
For more personal support, our premium tier offers direct access to Kathryn and Theresa in a private Voxer group. Visit buymeacoffee.com/pass the baton to learn more and join.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We are so excited to be joined today by our guest, Rebecca Senser. Rebecca, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, it was fun to like make that little Pennsylvania connection before before we started. I always love it. It's very, very good. So this could be going to be a fun conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we get started too much here, could you introduce yourself a little bit and tell us about your background and your role in music education?
Sure. So I've been teaching for 24 years at Du Bois area middle school. And in that time, we were a 6 through 8 middle school. Now we're a 5 through 8 middle school, but I've always taught 6 through 8 choirs. And I have a fifth grade music class that's called Rhythm and Movement. It used to be a sixth grade music class that was just called music class, but it was kind of recreated and it's called Rhythm and Movement, and it's a lot of fun to teach. So those are my teaching responsibilities. I'm currently the president-elect of the Pennsylvania Music Educators Association, and I grew up here in Western Pennsylvania. I went to Edinburgh University, where I met my husband, who is the band director at our middle school, who teaches right next door to me. So we bring a lot of work home with us, and much to my children's chagrin, I think. But yeah, we are obviously a very music education focused family.
Yeah. Oh, that's so fun. That's very
Yeah.
fun. Yeah, and again, like it's just great having the Pennsylvania connection.
Yeah.
So we were mentioning before the interview about how small this world is in music education, because we were actually introduced to Rekka through a mutual friend who was telling us about these concerts that you do that are essentially student selected, right?
Yeah, so we were finding that our spring concert was getting moved earlier and earlier every year because of our standardized test that
Yes.
happened for all of the students in our school, really students third grade through eighth grade in our district. And so we were having to move everything earlier if we wanted to get things done, basically. So we started thinking about ways to kind of reinvent concerts and things to focus on earlier in the year versus after the holiday break. And we had the idea of, well, let's do a pops concert. Let's do maybe music they can connect a little quicker to. And that kind of morphed into is maybe we shouldn't be picking the music. Maybe we should let them pick the music that they could relate to and make it maybe not what's popular and interesting to us as educators, but popular and interesting to our students. So we came up with the first couple years, it was like, this song or this song. And then that has grown into a ballot that we put out every year, and the kids look forward to it. They start giving me suggestions day one of the school year. Like they'll walk in the building and be like, I know what we should do for the Pops concert. We start making a list. I have a bulletin board with sticky notes that they can put anything up they want to tell me, but a lot of times it should be on the ballot for the Pops concert. So we get it on the ballot, and I narrow it down to about 20 songs, 25 songs, and then they vote on that right after we get back from our holiday break in December or January. And by the end of January, we know what songs we're going to start working on, and we have a goal for our concert that's usually in April then.
That's awesome. That it just makes me laugh when you say they come in on day one, but that kind of shows the excitement, right? That they're like, oh, this is something big. This is going to be something good.
It doesn't take long for them to realize that they have a say in this.
Yeah.
So they will tell me as soon as they hear something, what we should do? We should do this song. And they do. They get very excited about it.
I might have missed it, but what grade level is it all your grades? Or what grade is doing this?
So I have a sixth grade choir and a seventh and eighth grade choir. And then I have a seventh and eighth grade select choir. And all three groups do this.
Okay, great.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so the students come back in January, they vote, right? And you've got this massive ballot. Then what happens next?
So the nice thing with the ballot is if all the sixth graders pick something, that doesn't mean the seventh and eighth graders have to work on it. And all, you know what I mean? So we do it by grade level. And then we start working, and I'll go through and I'll pick 3 songs that I think let's see what we can do with these. And then we keep adding on. I usually keep one slot that I'm like, I think this would be really good. This year, one of our custodians walked in, and he loves to walk in the room and start singing in the middle of any class. And so he'll walk in, and either he'll just go la 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 la, or he'll start singing what we're singing. And he came in one day because the kids had the idea this year that maybe we should focus on movie music. And he came in one day and he decided that we should sing The Rose by Bette Midler, and from the movie The Rose. And I was like, absolutely none of my kids know that song, but that's a great song. So let's look into that. And so we took that song, and we started playing around with an arrangement of it. And they had chosen the song, What Was I Made For, from the Barbie movie, Billie Eilish. And we realized that those songs are in the same key, and they have a very similar background. And it was one of my students that pointed it out. And so we went right from one into the other. Like the music emotions you get sometime when you do things like that, especially the lyrics that come with that song from the Barbie movie. It was a really powerful moment for our concert. And we dedicated The Rose to our favorite custodian too. So like little moments that become really big moments
Yeah.
have come out of the freedom to say, well, we like these songs. What can we do with them?
Yeah.
So
That's
that's my
wow.
favorite thing about this whole experience.
Yeah. So it's not just, they're not just picking the songs, they're really helping to shape.
They're steering the whole concert. They're deciding, let's go with this theme, or let's not worry about a theme and let's do songs we like, or let's mash these two songs together. A lot of their ideas come from things like what they see on TikTok or YouTube.
Mhm.
We did a mashup of, I was a Papalamousse video that was really popular, Sweet Dreams and Seven Nation Army. Those two songs, combined together, and it was really fun for them. And that was something that all three grades did because they all saw the video and loved it. And so sometimes we find things that connect all three grade levels too. So that's one we've done. And then when we start to pick those songs, it's like, so what's going to be the background? Is it going to be piano? Are we going to have a band? So we usually put a little band together. We have a guitar player, bass player, set, and we put a combo together. So we rehearse them separate and then we add them in,
Oh,
and it becomes an event more than just here's what we learned and now we're going to sing it to you. It feels very personal, I think, to all the students. And there's years that I have kids that will come to me and say, I've been thinking about this song. I sat down at the piano, I wrote down all the harmonies, I heard it and I wrote it down, or I put it into finale or whatever we use now instead of finale, and we figured it all out and they bring it to me. And then there's other years where someone's like, I heard this version, I could sing it to you, but I don't know how to write it down. And so we pull out the phone, we get voice memo out. I'm like, go ahead, sing
yeah.
it to me. Or I'll sit with them and be like, what do you think, this one? Or do we go up there? We go down? And very organically, these arrangements come out of this. So we've done some, I would say, I want to say crazy things with these songs, but it's not crazy. It makes sense. We've done things that make sense with these songs to make them
Yeah.
easier for the students to sing, but also give them some ownership. And they love to find these arrangements that other people are doing other places. And so now they're doing that. They're making their own arrangement, their own version or cover of what they've heard, and they're making it ours.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That is so cool. I'm just thinking about, like, it would be so easy for you to take that list and just go to Pepper and buy those songs and say, here you go, we're singing this. But you're going way beyond that. And I think that's got to be so meaningful to students. What do you notice? Like, have you noticed anything that extends beyond the classroom from this? Like, do you see students doing things on their own or extending, once they go to high school?
Yeah, we have a talent show, and
Cool.
we do it way at the end of the year. So it's like the last week of school. And I
Mhm.
always have a couple students come in that have been through this process with me over the last 3 years.
Mhm.
They're your choir kids that are always in your room,
Yeah.
and they're coming up and they're singing duets with these harmonies where I'm like, where'd you find that? That was great. Where did and
Yeah.
they're building on their own, you know,
Mm.
brand of what they want to sound like with their friends.
Yeah.
Or I even just hear them singing, in between classes or in the hall. And I'm like, oh, that's really
That's
cool. Did you hear that someplace? Where did you come up with that? So they are extending it to their own personal tastes and their own things they're doing in
that's
smaller
awesome.
groups.
That's awesome. I think
Yeah.
that for me is always one of the big goals. It's like, are they still doing music in some way when they leave the classroom?
Yeah.
Because that was always a frustration of mine. I felt like music only happened within the four walls. This is music, we do music, then we're done. Music no more. And
Mhm.
so when you can start to see them doing things on their own time, in their own way, and taking,
Yeah.
what they got from the classroom, it's so fun.
I have a couple former students, like just off the top of my head, that went through, doing this whole concert every year and went through high school. And a few of them went off to college. And a couple of them are back in the area and they're performing as solo
Oh,
artists at, local establishments.
yeah.
And I'm so proud of that. And I don't take credit for that at all. I'm just proud of them for
Yeah.
they're still singing and
Mhm.
making music, and they don't need a classroom to tell them that they can sing and make music. They're just doing it on their own.
Right. That's the
Yeah.
big thing.
Well, I would wonder too, this concert that you do, this pops concert, I feel like sometimes when I do something like that, and there's something about going through the event that then I can find things that I did within that, or I saw what the kids are able to do in that kind of concert that then seeps into other parts of my teaching or other parts of the year? Like, what kinds of things does it just become, oh, I could do that in the fall too, or,
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
yeah.
So I know we definitely have had times where in the fall we work on a lot of what I would classify as your standard choral literature, the stuff that I
Mhm.
do.
yeah.
I do a lot of guest conducting and things like that that I would pick if I was guest conducting for this age group, a lot of
Mhm.
that literature. And even with that, I find ways to be like, I'll ask them, what do you think we need to work on today? And they're
Mm.
used to having a little bit, and they're middle schoolers, so they will always share their opinion with you, whether you want it or not. But
Yeah.
we can steer that, and say, so where do you guys think we should start today? Because obviously we don't have this learned yet. There's parts that are easier than others. Should we bother with something we already know, or what part would you say we should work on because we don't know? Or what do you think would make this sound performance ready? And they
Yeah.
love to share that. So that's kind of seeped into it. I see my students once a week in a very large group. We have about my seventh and eighth grade choir is probably about 150 students. My
Wow.
sixth grade choir is right around anywhere between right around 100 usually. So we have a lot. And it might even be bigger than that sometimes. It just depends, on the
Mhm.
year. But we have a lot of students involved in the large ensemble. And then when you take then I have them once a week in a small group. So it's that small group where I really one, I get to know them better, but two, they
Yeah.
really feel comfortable sharing some of their ideas because they're used to the
Mhm.
people in their small group and they get comfortable with them. We do a lot of
Yeah.
building on like trust in those small groups.
Yeah.
But even with some of the standard literature we've done, could we add this to the beginning of this? Could we what if we had like a djembe, or what if we had, we should have a
Yeah.
bass on this, or we should, and they'll start to add, maybe we should play ukulele with this. They'll make suggestions all year round because
Yeah.
they were
Mhm.
allowed to for that concert, and now they feel safe
Mhm.
making those suggestions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. So that they clearly are in an environment where they feel like their voice is heard. Like
Yeah,
and that their voice matters, that you're going to listen. And
yeah,
I'm sure that it's not every single thing they suggest that you're able to make happen. Right? But
yeah.
you
There's
can
some songs that just aren't choir songs.
Mhm.
We'll try. We'll spend a couple weeks on them, and then there has to be that moment where I kind of step in and say, maybe this just isn't a choir song, or they'll be like, and 9 times out of 10 they'll be like, it's not. We shouldn't do it. I don't know why we picked it. You know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
we'll push this one over here, and we'll come back to it. Let's
Yeah.
focus on these for now.
Yeah. But that's a good way to phrase it. You're just saying this isn't a choir song.
Yeah,
We're not judging the song in any way. We're just saying this might not be the best fit for our group.
us
And I think
exactly.
that's totally fair.
Yeah,
And yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I'm just thinking about how much fun the students must have with all this whole process. Yeah.
I have a good time with it.
Oh,
When we have
good.
these like brainstorming sessions, I get really excited about what we're doing, and I'll be like, oh, okay, so I'll go home and put that in my computer, or I'll go home and have Mr. Sensor put it in because he's faster than me at putting things in the computer like that. And we'll get this figured out. And sometimes he'll even like make a play along if we're gonna have like ukuleles,
Oh,
he'll
cool.
make me a play along that they can, we had a song we did not this past school year, but 2 school years ago for the 24 spring concert. And
Yeah.
the original it was like pitched up, but it was like in between two keys. It was really bizarre if you listen to the
Oh.
recording. And he was able to take it, put it into a YouTube video, tune it, add chords to it,
Oh.
and the students were able to sing along to it, play keyboard, play ukulele, kind of
Oh.
make it their own. But it was a lot easier when it was in like a real key
Yeah.
and to work on and to figure out okay
Mhm.
the chord changes and everything. So and he's it's great working with somebody that I could come home at night and say, hey, that song you heard us working on today, could you help me with something with that? And he loves to work with the musicians we end up having, with the guitar players and everything.
Oh,
He
fun.
very good at working with guitar players and bass players and the set players and putting together our combo. he's also our accompanist when we have our concerts. So, he's into it. He's playing the keyboard and rocking
Yeah.
out with the students that are playing the other instruments. And I'm very fortunate that I don't have to seek out that expertise.
Yeah.
I have it right in house, literally. So I can use it. Yeah.
That's awesome. But it sounds like the students really do a lot. So,
Yeah, they do.
it's
They really do.
yeah, that's really good. Do you, we know that none of these things always go swimmingly all of the time. Are there any like challenges or hurdles that you've had to overcome over the
There's
years?
there's definitely those moments where, you do have to kind of pull a plug on a song because it's just not
Mm.
working, or just time factors are always like, I know we really wanted to get this one done, but like the concert's next week. Do we focus on the 5 or 6 songs that sound good already, or do we try to make this one work too? Those conversations you have to have, but those are really important conversations in time management, in performance, programming, that any musician needs to have, no matter what genre of music they're working with. So I also look at those as learning situations. I've
Yeah.
I've been able to, one time when I was guest conducting, I was able to take a song and kind of do this with it in a very simplified manner. And I think at first my colleagues kind of looked at me like, what are you doing? And I think by the time we were done, they got it. And it was a
Yeah.
great experience. Like, everyone had a good time at the concert performing it, and we had a really good time working on it in a shortened manner of time. And I think selling things like this can be scary, because I think as
Yeah.
musicians, and as teachers, we're like, here's what we're doing. It's on the page. I'm going to teach it to you the way it
Yeah.
is, because that's what we do. And saying, but we could change it. We can mix this up.
Yeah.
You don't have to sing that part, and let's add this part, and let's have the guys sing just the root of the chord, in this section. And um, it doesn't have to be scary.
Yeah. I think what I hear you say too is, I mean, we as professionals know, like, we can plan it all out and we know how to get it done to the due date. Like, we can get all the songs in, like, we know how to do it. But I'm hearing you say it's just such a great learning um experience for the kids to know, like, here is a timeline. We didn't get completely there. What are we going to do? Are we going to push? Are we going to let go? Are we, and I
Yeah.
think those are, they need that, right? Especially right before high school, but they need that even in an elementary school with me.
Yeah.
Like, they just need to work through those things, because those are life skills that are going to
Oh,
happen over and over
absolutely.
again.
Absolutely. And you're talking about anything, it's just, I want to get this done, but I might have to settle for this. And
Right.
Yeah.
as long as this is quality, and it's a good experience, that's okay that we
Yes.
didn't get to this.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's about the experience. So
Yeah.
I know for myself, when I think about, first couple years when I was teaching versus where I am now, there's a lot of things that I've changed in how I do it and how I think about it and all of that. So, if you were thinking about, is there anything that you used to do it one way, but now you do it this way, or that you used to think this, but now you think that, like, what would you put in there?
I think, especially when it comes to my choir classes,
Mm-hmm.
the concert was like the thing. It was like the ultimate event.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing was more important than the concert. That was everything. Twice a year.
Yep.
That was the only thing that mattered. And I think as I've gotten older, I've gotten to know my community and my students better. Um, I really find that we were saying around our music department that it's not the destination, it's the journey. It's not the
Yeah.
event, it's the planning. There's other
Yeah.
ways to say it, but it's everything that leads. The concert's great. The concert's when we get to enjoy everything we worked on.
Yep.
And I used to be so offended if someone didn't make the concert. If one of my middle school students didn't show up, I was so offended by that when I started teaching. And as I've gotten older and I've taken things into consideration, like my students aren't old enough to drive themselves here.
Right.
A lot of them live way out of town, so they're not going to be able to walk to the concert. They are at the mercy of their parents being able to be there. And
Yeah.
it doesn't mean their parents don't want them there. There's things that will come up sometimes. And that flexibility and willingness to work with other groups. For the last 2 or 3 years, we've ended up having Little League is really big in my area. The Little League signups were the same night as the concert, like the last 2 years. So we worked it out, This group, like 6 o'clock is the sixth grade concert, and we're going to get you out of there in time to get to sign up. And my 7:30 is the 7th and 8th grade concert, and you're going to have time. They said you could get in the front of the line. I already talked to them. You can come right over and it's fine. We are able to work those things out. But in the situations where we just can't, it's okay. We had the experience. The student was a part of it. We worked on it together. We try to have other opportunities for performance, like in school. And, sometimes we'll go on tour to the elementary schools and things like that. There's other ways they can perform this music. And we wish they could be with us tonight, but I don't get offended anymore. I don't take it personally. I don't take it out on their grade. And I've learned to accept that what we do before the concert is actually more important than what we do at the concert.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the biggest change philosophically that I've had since starting my career.
Yeah, I can definitely relate, and even thinking about like what they wore to the concert and how that was so important when I first started teaching, right?
I
And
used to
now
care
it's
so
like,
much about that. And now like
Mhm.
we fundraise once a year and we use that money to buy everybody a t-shirt. And they wear that t-shirt and jeans, and what they wear for our holiday concert, that's up to them. You want to wear Christmas colors, you want to wear a nice dress, you want to wear a tie, you want to wear a t-shirt, you do you. And then when we get to the spring concert, we're wearing matching t-shirts that the 8th graders designed. And that's another thing. They'll come in the first day of school and be like, I designed the t-shirt for the spring. So, but like things that you do it once or twice, it becomes a tradition, And so we wear t-shirts and jeans and we look great. And
That's great.
that's all they need.
Yeah. Because it's about the music making that you do together.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in the book Pass the Baton, we have this things to try tomorrow that we kind of offer our audience, just so that, like you think about a Pops concert, or you think about some of the things that you've been talking about, they can be overwhelming because it's a lot, which I know you've kind of grown over time. But like, what would be advice for someone to try tomorrow, or a little thing just to kind of get themselves thinking?
Two things come to mind. The first is take your summers or your time off, whenever that is, and play around with things like this. Seek out people that have done it. Go to conferences or professional development, or just even like watch podcasts of people that have done things like this, and get ideas and try things out without the students around. Just play around with some things. That's one thing I would say. I think about a lot of the stuff we do during the school year. I'm thinking about now, like how we can do things, because I have a little time now. I mean, I'm rearranging my kitchen and I have a million things going on, but I'm thinking about that stuff now where it's low stakes, instead of like, oh, I have like 6 other classes to worry about besides this one while we're picking this music. I also say little things that make your rehearsal more meaningful and you end up not wasting any time. I started, and this is silly and little, but I started using dry erase boards. And my students walk in and they grab a tiny, little dry erase board. Some of them even look like little paddles you'd have at like an auction or something. They have like a handle. And they grab a marker, and they go and they have it at their seat. And we will sing through things, and I'll stop and say, real quick, everyone take your, or I'll just hold up my own so they know what I'm talking about. Real quick, draw a eighth rest or whatever. You know what I mean? And I'll be like, okay, so we all know what it looks like. We all know what to do there, just real quick. And if we all know, we can move on. Or if there's 1 or 2 kids that didn't know, they now know because they saw it. Instead of taking a lot of time, stopping everything, breaking this flow we have going on to teach something, I like to embed things quickly. And sometimes I do have to say, all right, well, we're going to have to spend time on that because nobody knows what I'm talking about. Measure 32, what key are we in? Things like that. So little things like that, where I don't have a ton of time with my students every week, but I'm not wasting time because I'm finding like just little ways to keep things moving.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I feel like that's so much more effective than okay, does everybody know what an eighth rest looks like? And they
Yeah.
all nod because they don't
They
want to be
don't.
the one kid
Yeah.
that, you know, right?
Yeah.
But now you actually know.
Yeah.
And even if this kid looks at that one and then draws it, who cares? Because now they know.
Right.
Because now they know. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I found I really like dry erase boards for the fact that like I can hear the thinking or see the thinking of those quiet kids that never say anything. But you
Yes.
know, you saw their answer, and they're very willing to do that because they can still be quiet and turn their dry erase board around. But I found that I really like that for that reason, that my
Yeah.
quiet kids, I really get to hear.
Love it when I find a kid that never raises their hand and I don't know like what they're like, if they're getting, and they know everything. And then you're
Yeah.
like, well, look at that. They really understand this. They're just a quiet kid. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, this has been so much fun. Thank you for sharing. I think anyone listening is going to get so much out of it. Both like again the big picture and the little practical things that we can do, just in any rehearsal. If people wanted to learn more, connect with you, find out more about what you're doing, how could they do that?
So I'm on Facebook, Rebecca Kogan, Cogan, censor. I have to look at my TikTok. I'm never on TikTok except for to post things. My students, I stopped buying candy and stickers to like reward them a long time ago. And we started making TikToks. And that's how like, they're like, can we make a TikTok? I'm like, if we can get this done and we have 5 minutes left, we sure can.
That's awesome.
Or, okay, well, if you come back at lunch, we'll do a TikTok because you got this done, So but I never remember what my TikTok is. Oh, but my TikTok is the real, in parentheses, Rebecca Censor. So that's my TikTok. And then I think I'm on Instagram probably as Rebecca Kogan Censor too. And I am, as an officer of PMEA, if anyone wants to get a hold of me, my email is rebecca.censor@pmea.net.
Great. Awesome. Well, we'll make sure that we put those links in the show notes so people can find, especially the TikTok, because that just sounds like it's going to be so much fun.
They teach me things every day.
But isn't that the best?
It really is.
It keeps it fun.
It does.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you. We appreciate your time. And yeah, I think people are going to really enjoy this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. If you have found value in our conversation, please hit that like button, subscribe to our podcast, and leave a review. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us grow our community of passionate music educators.